And now for the panel discussion, I'd like to welcome Ms. Ellen Pugh and Dr. Mary Richards and Dr. Thaira Al-Shirawi, please.
Thank you very much for the presentation that you gave, Ellen, and thank you very much for from the presentation from Mrs. Al-Dalami. We found it very useful to have those overviews of both what's happening in the Bahraini context, but also seeing what's happened in the UK context in terms of shortening the gap, if you like, between a lot of different areas where there is issues around equality of opportunity. So now is the opportunity for you to raise any of the questions that may have came to mind during the presentations and allow Ellen to draw out or extend some of those discussions. We sort of skipped over the Aurora aspect, so perhaps that's something we'd like to come back to. And then Thaira is also going to respond, being present during the original presentation, which will allow us to kind of pick up on the things that perhaps might have been lost in translation with just having the slides today. So we'd like it very much for people to pose their own questions, but just to start off to say there seemed to be, towards the end of the presentation, quite a bit of discussion around a kind of mismatch between what was being proposed and what the aspirations of the Bahraini context is, and the potential barriers there in terms of legislation. And I just wondered if, Thaira, you will be able to say a few things about that and how Bahraini institutions of higher education attempt to navigate between officialdom and getting things approved and what the needs of the market are in terms of job opportunities for graduates.
Okay, the Bahrain higher education, of course, the regulations and so on. We have both the Quality Assurance Authority for institutional or program reviews, but we also have regulating the higher education as the Higher Education Council, which is under the Vision 2030 of the Crown Prince, His Royal Highness Prince Salman had put a few years back the 2030 vision with education reforms that goes, for primary education up to higher education. Now we have come a long way with the help of the Supreme Council for Women in terms of diversity and equal opportunities for women, whether in higher education or any other walk of life. The regulations are being updated. We now have, as we heard from Ms. Bahija Delimi, the Supreme Council for Women not only encourages the equal opportunities, but also they are looking at reviewing the equal opportunities in any type of organization or institution. These reviews go also in hand with the government push for equal opportunities. And Bahrain in general, although we are part of the GCC countries, Bahrain has a unique position because it has been always the first to include education for diversity and gender equality or equity. Now we have a number of initiatives, but I'd like to sort of put the few questions also to the public, if I may, that are attending the conference today. I think in order for universities in particular to be, have a role in equality or diversity or men and women equality, they have to play a major role in economic planning, which I think is not happening at the moment with especially that we have a number of higher education institutions that are private in Bahrain. Of course, Ahliauniversity was the first private university that was established, and we have an equal opportunity. Now, higher education institutions, especially the private ones, would need the private-public sector partnership in order to be able to build capacity, have a little bit of autonomy under the regulations, of course, to transform the higher education. Bahrain, or generally in this area of the world, research funds are not available. So in order to contribute to employment or career opportunities, fourth generation and ICT and so on, and to become globally competitive as an economy, not only that we need the private-public partnership, but in order to build this capacity, research funds, help for higher education institutions are important in order for them to have the innovation and prepare students that are coming in. We are not short of students that have the caliber, the capacity, and that can understand, the global village they are living in. However, the support of the governments, the support of business society for such research and innovation is important. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so perhaps we can open it up to the floor to ask any questions, particularly to Ellen, who's here. Meredith, do you want me to? Shall I be the?
Thank you. Yes, my question is for Ellen, and it's about the difference between equal opportunity and equality. So, for example, you gave some statistics. I can't remember them exactly, but it was like 20-something% professors are women, etc. And there were questions from some of our colleagues about the gender pay gap. Those questions were, is that difference in pay actually entrenched in policy, or are men and women officially paid the same? And obviously they are officially paid the same in the UK, and yet there's still that gender pay gap. Officially, women can apply to be professors, but there's still this great gap. So could you just address that a little bit in terms of that difference between equal opportunity and actual equality?
Certainly. Thank you very much for that question, Meredith. It's a very interesting one. We've had, for instance, equal pay policy in our country since 1970. So yes, if you were to ask, does the UK have equal pay? Does it have equality of opportunity and employment? The answer is yes. In policy, we certainly do. In practice, however, as soon as you start to scrape beneath the surface, it becomes apparent that we don't. And that's why we're doing the work that we do to understand more about the difference between policy and practice. So we could sit back and think, fantastic, we've now got 24% women professors. That's a sign that we have equality. But we know from going out and talking to women, as well as looking at our data, that they are experiencing barriers to progression. The HE sector in the UK has been historically pretty male-dominated. And often there are terms of, the old boys network. It's just the way things are done. But yet people don't always understand how things work, how things are done in an organisation. So one of the key things has been to ensure that women understand how actually the system might work. But the other thing is, as you highlight, there is a difference between equality of opportunity and equality, in a sense, or equalities. So you could, if we have equality, we're treating everyone the same. Everyone is going through the system in the same way, having the same experience. Yet, if you have a woman who has recently given birth, has a young child, and she is expected to deliver her assignment at the same time as her male colleague, you're treating them equally by saying, could you both have the assignment in on the same date? But that won't necessarily be equality for them. For the woman, it might be a case of, yes, you still need to submit your assignment, but you could do it at a later date, or actually, in your case, you could submit a written essay as opposed to sit an exam. So it's very much looking at how there are different groups have different needs, and to ensure equality for everyone, you often need to treat people differently, not the same.
Thanks, Ellen. I wanted to ask a question about the stats you brought up that relate not just to questions of gender equality, but also to the differential between students from black and minority ethnic groups. Why is it that when they were going about doing the study that relates to gender inequality, did they not automatically think about issues relating to black and minority ethnic students?
That's a very good question. I mean, partly that's been due to our historical legislation, whereby we've had, prior to the introduction of our Equality Act in 2010, we had different laws covering race equality. In the UK, different laws covering gender equality, pay equality, and so forth. It was all under separate legislation. And an organisation would often go out and employ someone differently to work on race, another person to work on gender, or potentially it would be overseen by a committee. And I think what we have experienced now is the Equality Act has made people think more holistically about an issue. The government initially introduced a concept of dual discrimination, but it wasn't ever enacted. Yet that concept of dual discrimination has remained. And we are now thinking more about identities and groups. So as our work has evolved, we've started more to say, okay, we've now got women to this point in employment, in terms of course access, and feedback from academics, from staff and students themselves has been, but my experiences aren't in line with this progress, with these differences that you're highlighting. So we've gone back to the drawing board and said, okay, right, these are the experiences of women as a whole, and then these are the experiences of women from different groups. So it's more as our work's evolved that we've started to look more within a group rather than at separate groups.
Thank you. I suppose it relates back to what happened a bit earlier when we were having a coffee break, and Professor Abdullah drew attention to the fact that we're, in a very multinational context. So I wonder if I could also get a view from Tyra about whether this is a particular issue within the higher education sector in Bahrain, or whether these, because of the nature of the country, that hasn't really been a significant factor in terms of equality of opportunity within the country. So we have got two mics, actually.
We used to have two mics. Well, as I said, Bahrain has a unique position, and just going back to a few of the presentations and the statistics and government data and so on, multicultural, multinational has been always part of the Bahrain culture, and we do have also equal opportunities for the different cultural, wherever people come from. And in universities in particular, there's a big percentage of expats and multicultural diverse group of people, and I think this just adds to what higher education is actually bringing to any society, whether in students, and we have an Ahliya exchange programs with many universities, or with the faculty themselves and admin staff. So higher education has always been leading in multicultural people, and that brings a lot to an environment of an organization, the openness, the the diverse, the innovation, the also tolerance as well, which the noble, if you like, role of universities to also carry in society.
Thank you. Is there any questions from the floor? Professor Abdullah.
It's a comment. Thank you very much, of course. It's just a comment raised from the last question. Yeah, I found myself, of course, discussing with 6 people in the same table outside from 7 different cultures. Well, I used nationalities, but it's really what matters to me, the culture, And then suddenly we called 3 or 4 people, and we become 12 cultures, different nationalities, but different cultures. I think Bahrain is the model place for accepting cultures, in fact, even accepting different religions. And this is a part of our constitution, and it's a part of the directives of His Majesty the King and the government. His Royal Highness the Prime Minister always talks about it. And here where I think we could play a very important role in Bahrain for the countries around us, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, UAE, Qatar, and Oman, and probably even further, where really we can show them that equal opportunities, whether sex-wise, which is females, males, or even the other, I have, of course, always a funny talks or in my mind, I hate white and black. And I always had a problem with this, maybe for the last 10 or 15 years. I'm not happy about white people and black people, I think we should call them maybe, lighter and darker or something like that. Because I always have a problem, even with our verses in the Quran, when it says يَوْمَ أَسْوَدَّتْ وُجُوهُ وَابْيَضَّتْ وُجُوهُ, which says there is a day where faces will be white and faces will be black. All the bads there and all the goods here. Of course, people will tell me, oh, but that's the Quran. I said, no, but I'm sure the meaning was different. It's a different total than colors, I know we say nights, dark, black, So I think maybe lighter and darker will solve one of these problems. But what I really want to, my message to all my colleagues, why do we go to higher education, and why we go to PhDs and masters and study if it's not for the best of the world, for a better life, for my kids, my grandchildren, And I cannot do that if I'm going to think of different colors, different ethnics, different kada. So I want this to stem from so that Ahliauniversity believes 100% since day one of the multicultural, internationalization, And all these, can we make this a role that we believe it's a part of our duty? I hate really to feel that we are segregated to different based on ethnicity or based on color or based on this. So I think this really copy of the conference or the second conference in equal opportunities, and I really thank Brunel University, and I thank, of course, Advanced Higher Education in Britain. I think we can really make a bigger story of it. We should enlarge it. We should probably have debates lively and more than this, and maybe it should even go further than just in the hotel or whoever attended. I would love to start from today that next year or the third copy of this conference to be lively televised, maybe, if not Bahrain TV, it could be even more than that, because I think, this is the use of these debates and conferences rather than just having 2 days and then fold it up. I was very pleased with the comments of Bahija this morning when she talked about, well, last year we attended and we were a part of it, but we thought that's it, it's finished. So the continuity of it means that the topic is a part of your university wishes and hopes. And I want to tell them, and that's really of Brunel, and I'm very proud of a relation between a British university and a Bahraini university, and it's very successful. This is the 15th year of that, this relation, And yesterday, in the board of Brunel Ahliya, we all wanted to be wider and wanted to go to different fields and want to make sure this partnership become a model of partnerships between a Western advanced university and a young Bahraini or even Arab university for the benefit of humanity. And this is very, very important. Thank you very much. Thank you indeed.
Thank you. Thank you. Is that working? Yeah. Oh, thank you. That was inspiring to hear that, and I hope that there will be possibilities. We have the technology to enable us to not just connect with audiences in this area, but also with additional connections that Brunel has internationally, so getting more people involved in the conversation. And I think it's very important, again, that at this moment in time, particularly, that we do think of ourselves as being global citizens and not merely aligned to our own particular nationality or country or whatever it is. So yes, I'd just like to ask one other question, that falls back from the original presentation from the, which was about this question of the construction of, or the compulsory introduction of equal opportunities committees. Now, very often when initiatives come as a top-down drive, people can resent them, and I wondered what I know that within the context of Ahliya that's been welcomed, but I wondered if you had a sense about how that's been received by other institutions, including other higher institutions.
In general, in Bahrain, I think this was received very well in Bahrain, and there is also most of the government and non-government institutions now in Bahrain have equal opportunity committees. The Supreme Council of Women have 2 years award for best companies in different sectors, government or private and different industries, for equal opportunities in these companies. And also a couple of years ago, in the UN, We have Her Royal Highness Princess Sabika bint Ibrahim, the wife of His Majesty the King. We have an international also Equal Opportunities Award with the UN. So companies, on the contrary, and government institutions have been really very supportive of the initiative. And what I think we need is, again, the research behind this, the comparative studies, showcasing what Bahrain has accomplished also. We have, around the world. So this is what I think going forward we need to focus on. It's interesting that Ms. Bahija and Delimi also thought, or in her presentation has pointed that maybe higher education institute should rethink their role in society, for employment, for STEM. In Bahrain, we have, one of the best, records or statistics for women in STEM. But I think, as globalization and future jobs, they say they are changing. Jobs that are here, they're not going to be there anymore. I think the government and private sector should really put their force behind universities in innovation and inventions. Whether this is, in diversity, equal opportunities, bringing other cultures, other universities as well to work in collaboration, and really support research for that. Thank you.
Ellen, I wondered if you had any questions you'd like to pose.
I do, thank you, Mary. And I was actually just wondering, do you have similar issues that we do in the UK with a pipeline of whereby women don't have a problem in terms of getting into university to study, but then in terms of further courses, going on into academia and potentially onto professorship, that the numbers of women are declining, or do they remain at a similar level?
Well, in Bahrain, for the higher education, people talk about glass ceiling, but we have 2 president assistants that are women, and we have 4 of our deans are women. We have 6 deans in the university, 4 of them are women. But that's the story of Ahliya, which is one of the best records for higher education institutes. But you have mentioned correctly that there are equal opportunities, but sometimes different circumstances in life might not be the best, make women in the position to progress. However, it is also by law that we have equal opportunity, equal pay. We don't see in the government institution, it's by rank. We have seen ministers that are women. In the parliament, we have a lot of women and we have 2 houses of parliament in Bahrain. You probably see more appointed women than elected, but that's also cultural as well. But in Bahrain in particular, we might have the best records for equal opportunity in all our statistics. In education, we are almost 100%. Women are going to education in different fields. We don't have a problem with that. But I hope that one day we will talk about equal opportunity for men, that we are paid higher, and there is the reverse gap in pay and opportunities.
And can I just ask, in terms of how do you determine where you need more women on particular courses, and do you sort of say, actually on this engineering course, at this institution we've only got 20% women? How does it work? How do the universities know that they need to recruit more women or more male students, and how are those students then selected?
I would pose that question to Professor Mansour. Professor Mansour, the president of Ahliauniversity.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, in terms of gender, there is no planning as to proportions or percentages. However, I want to mention that there are 3 organizations in Bahrain, public organizations, that produce both statistics and projected jobs of the future and in a number of disciplines. And based on that, HEC and other organizations and the admission criteria is set. There is not a single program in any university that says only accept one gender over the other or percentage-wise. It is fully open. I am not aware of any program in any university where this is the case. However, I think we have to be aware that the education of the public as to the expectations is a bit missing.
Yeah.
So they push their kids to go to certain classical disciplines, which they believe they are novice or they are special. And it is unfortunate in my view that the culture out there, especially on our side of the world, as you have shown in your graphs, more women are into medicine.
Yes. Yeah.
And here we'll find all those who score very high in schools, their parents think they should go for medicine.
Yeah.
Strange enough, even the scholarships given by the ministries, they give medical or medicine scholarships to those with the highest grades. When in reality, possibly some fields are more appropriate to women because of the constraints they have in real life. And I believe we should educate in that direction. Possibly a job with working shifts, and possibly to some women who are planning to have a number of children. It's sometimes, I mean, this equal opportunity issue is a bit like asking, say, a lion and a chimpanzee or a monkey, and they have a race to reach the top of the tree, who gets there first. I mean, equality doesn't mean really equality as such. I think equality with the constraints. So going back to the future and the projection, if you look at the job market in Bahrain, the LMRA, which is the labor organization, produces current statistics and expected statistics. You will actually be surprised from what I have seen from the statistics you presented. I think probably they're similar. They are similar, and I think that should be evaluated and studied. I don't think anybody really knows the answer. And also, when you've put your statistics, and when we have our statistics, there is no justification as to why these happen. That's just the reality now. And I don't think there's a plan as to what to do over the next 10 years to enable and improve the results. That's really all I want to say. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we've been working to try to do is to say, yes, these are the statistics, but what more can we do? What can we do to change things? So I was at a presentation last week by the University of Liverpool. In 2012, they had 18% women professors. They've introduced a number of initiatives to try to address that. And today they have nearly 27% women professors. They haven't done anything significant in terms of to women as such, but they have taken clear steps internally. They've undertaken Athena Swan. They've also sent a number of women on Aurora. So through Athena Swan, they've done a thorough analysis of their promotions processes, their recruitment processes, also their family-friendly policies basically to enable women to be able to balance having a career and having a family. And so a lot of the work that we're currently doing in the UK is to enable women to achieve that. as well as the government recognizing that men in today's world are wanting to be more involved with their family life. So the government's just introduced something called shared parental leave, whereby men and women can take leave in the first year of their child's life from their job. Take-up isn't fantastic because it's not paid at the same rate as our maternity leave pay, but it's there, and some of the best employers out there, including Brunel, are paying shared parental leave for men at the same rate as women's maternity leave to send out clear signals that they as an employer support men and women being involved in their family life. So we're trying to follow the Scandinavian model a bit in that sense to ensure that a family is both a man and a woman looking out for their children in the early years. So that's one element. And so
I just wanted to sort of a bit of a shout out for Brunel there, in as much as we do have a lot of colleagues who do precisely that. So they divide the parental leave into 6 months periods, which allow both parents the opportunity to spend that important time at the early stages of their child's life. And share that as a learning experience, but also as a means of developing a strategy that acknowledges that it is a shared responsibility in bringing up a child, and that the more structures that are in place to support people to do what works best for their family, the better it is in creating fairer opportunities.
Yeah, if I may, I think in Bahrain, that would be interesting to have the shared parental leave, because I can't speak for everyone, but perhaps most of the men won't take it. And it's also a culture thing. However, in Ahliya, in Bahrain in general, first of all, we don't have affirmative action or like positive discrimination as such. However, a lot of the companies, because of the equal opportunity committees and the encouragement of the Supreme Council of Women, have a lot of initiatives and programs and so on for women to help them. In Ahliya, for example, under the holding company, we have Ahliya School. So women are given and men are given sort of discounts for the students to go to the school, to go to the training center. We have a lot of scholarship to both our men and women colleagues, but we encourage a lot of women. So most of the graduates of Brunel PhD without residence that were sponsored by Ahliya are actually women. So there is a lot that we are doing as an institution. But also, having said that, Ahliya comes in the forefront of like higher education institution, and we do comparison of what they are doing and what we are doing. We are trying to introduce other initiatives, discounts for families, options and so on, to help men and women. But the shared leave, I don't think anybody will take it up, and it's not a law yet in Bahrain, as well as sort of affirmative actions not yet there.
Okay. I think in terms of the shared leave, like I said, there has been low take-up of it. So we're now looking at how we can increase that take-up. And it will require cultural change, very much so in the UK. We don't have affirmative action or what we term positive discrimination in terms of you give someone a job because they're a woman. And it's something that we've quite struggled with in the UK in terms of explaining to people that they cannot do that. I'll go to some universities and they're like, we've got a women-only shortlist. And we have to say, no, you cannot do that. That is against our law. What we have instead is something called positive action, whereby you can take a number of steps to encourage people to apply for a position, and when they are applying, ensuring that they're in a good position to do so. So whether that be having on your adverts, we encourage women to apply for this post, whether it be exploring your family-friendly policies, or actually looking at your recruitment processes and saying to women, look, these are our recruitment processes, this is what we would expect of candidates, and in many cases running specific recruitment workshops for them. So you cannot give someone a job because they're a woman, but you can take steps around it to ensure that that women know that they can apply, and B, that when they do that, they will be in a good position to. But there's something called a tiebreaker in our law, whereby if you have two candidates of equal experience, at that point you could choose the woman over the man if you can demonstrate legally that they both have the same experience. It's rarely used because it's so difficult to say these two people have exactly the same experience, so people are scared of using it.
Thank you very much. Are there any other further questions? If there isn't, then I'd just like to thank very much our panel today, and in particular to Ellen for taking us through that process and sharing her experiences. I'm just going to hand back to Tyra, or our person over there, to introduce a final speaker for this morning, Dr. Kamal.